Okay. We're live. It's gonna start streaming now. How come I can't see myself? Okay, let me do this. There we go. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you, all those that are joining in. Yes, God is good all the time. Sylvia is back with us today. We believe and trust that all things work together for good to those who love the Lord and are called to his purposes. And today is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. I'm so honored to have Sylvia Sanyanga here with me today on our stories of hope. Yeah, and thank you all who are joining in. Let us know you can hear us and you can see us. I see you, Mujalifa. Thank you for telling us you can see us. Can you hear us? Angie, thank you for joining. Titi, I see you. Tell us where you're joining in from. And please do share with your friends that we are going live so that you don't miss this intriguing story of an amazing and phenomenal woman we have today, Sylvia. I believe her story is going to bring hope to someone, is going to minister hope to someone out there. So yeah, we are down but never out. So if we go down, we rise again. Last Friday was a challenge for us network-wise, but hey, we beat it. And I guess that's the story of Sylvia as well. She's had to just fight and beat things all her life and keep going. So that fighting spirit obviously brought us here today. And we are trusting that a number of you will join us. Please share this broadcast with others. In the meantime, I will ask Sylvia to just greet us while I also try to just share this broadcast with some of our friends.
Hi, Samu. Thank you very much for having me. Hello, everybody. It's lovely that you're here. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks everybody who's tuning in now. We just want to wait a little bit, and as we do so, I will just give a little introduction about our guest today. I will give her a chance to clarify, but for the stuff that I know already, I believe this lady that we have today is a trailblazer. She's such a phenomenal woman. And when I look at her life, I see an amazing woman, a woman of strength and character. She is a professional lady. She works with the Canadian Embassy. At the same time, she's a businesswoman. Well, I would call her Proverbs 31 woman. She does things with her hands. She's an award-winning events coordinator, right? She has won an award because of the work that she's been doing. And she's also a philanthropist. She struggled a bit when I called her that initially, but I think when she reflected on her life, she did realize that she's been doing great work to transform the lives of many people out there that have gone through the situations that she's been through. So she's an amazing lady. She loves the Lord. And yeah, we are here today and we want her to just share her story with us, and when I think of this episode, I just keep saying the statement, keep hope alive. You see, life has a tendency to throw things at us where we can go down. And usually a lot of people don't know how to bounce back when the time they reach rock bottom, and it throws things at us. Sometimes we even question ourselves, we even question God, all those things. What do you do in those times? And I think Sylvia's story is a story that might inspire somebody who is in that place where they are questioning themselves. So we do want to welcome all our guests today. I see Ashley, you're here. Thank you for joining. Ruth, you're always here. I love you, girl. Thank you for always being here. Yes, and Tokozani, this is my schoolmate. We were together at Regina Mundi. Thank you for joining. Please share this broadcast with others, and let us know where you are joining in from. Yes, so we are going to go straight into this so that we value your time. Uh, yeah, and allow Sylvia to just speak and speak to us and to tell us her story of hope today. So here it is. So Sylvia, probably maybe we can start it. I did give a brief introduction. I think, yeah, I tried, but probably you might want to clarify a few things in terms of who you are, so that people have an understanding of who we are talking to or we're speaking with today. So maybe I'll give you an opportunity to just introduce yourself and tell us who you are, and yeah, you can take it away.
So my name is Sylvia Sanyanga. I am a mother of three adorable children, Natasha, Raymond, and Nathan, and married to a wonderful husband. His name is Eddie. And I just, like you rightfully said, I love the Lord and am grateful I've found my purpose in just leaving to work and make people's lives better. I do have an events company, and yes, I was nominated for an award last year in the UK for Best Events Organizer. That was just a nomination, but in the same stint, I was also nominated for Best Community Leader for the Nate Foundation, which is an organization that Eddie and I founded in 2006 in honor of two of our children who have Fanconi's anemia. And so I actually won that award. And then later this year in February, I also got an award in Dubai, the Boldness Award. Um, and so I'm truly grateful to the Lord because I found my purpose. And even in finding my purpose, I'm shocked that I'm celebrated for it. But again, I think it's just so that the Lord may show that even during the things that give you the most pain, if you keep hope and faith alive, you'll conquer and victory will come out of it and celebration will come out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Actually, didn't know of some of the other awards, hey? The one from Dubai. Yes, indeed. I think when you're busy doing your work, a lot of times you're just busy doing you and being you, and you don't realize that people are actually noticing. And someday, somehow, even when you're getting tired, you realize that you get celebrated along the way. And I think it's a sign to also show that whatever you're doing, keep doing it, keep going at it. It's only a matter of time. You will be shocked. It will shock you. God will always shock you. So yeah, we want to now get into your story. And oh, it's nice to see you, Rumbi. Thank you for joining. And Nyasha, thank you for joining. So we want Sylvia to just share with us. Oh, and Wembai, you made it today. I'm so excited that I saw you today, Wembai, at Ziwa. So yeah, I want Sylvia to just share with us your story. I think you might need to explain to us some of the medical jargon that we don't know. What does it mean in terms of cancer and stuff like that? And so maybe I just want you to share with us your story of hope, how the journey has been for you, the things that you discovered along the way, especially like the part of your journey with your children and in terms of your purpose as well.
So in 2013, our daughter Natasha, who was 5 years old then, had bruises on her right arm, and we thought nothing of it because she was still playing around. She was in nursery school then, and a week later she had a bigger bruise on her thigh.
Okay.
And so that's when it was a cause for concern. And so we then decided to go to the ER, and the next day they actually called us and said, look, you have to come in with your child urgently. And so when we got there, she was actually walking, right? And as soon as we got there, everybody was in a frenzy, and they're like, is that Natasha? And I'm like, yes. And before we knew it, they're rushing her into a ward, and they're in a bit of a panic. And so the doctor says, can I see you? Then my husband had traveled with my dad. And so it was just me and my mom. And then the doctor said to me, your child is losing blood.
Okay.
So they're what are called platelets, and platelets help the blood clot. And they're supposed to be between 150 to 450 in terms of count. And they had gotten down to 16.
Oh.
And so hence the bruises, because she was bleeding internally. But so what we saw as bruises and purple clots were actually just internal bleeding. And so we're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yes. And so she's at a very dangerous point where she can actually bleed to death. And you've walked in with a child who's playing and who's saying okay, and then you wake up and they're saying this. Called my husband. He was quite shocked. They had to return quickly. And from then they did tests and then confirmed that she had a condition called Fanconi's anemia. And so with Fanconi's anemia, her blood cells, pretty much all her blood cells the counts were going down, her white cells were going down, and those help fight infection. So she was susceptible to any sort of infection. And even she would get to a point where even if she took meds, it wouldn't help. So it was a very dire situation. And we were told that we needed a bone marrow transplant in order to save her life. And so when we inquired on how much we needed for the bone marrow transplant, we were told we needed $100,000. Now, at that point, I'll tell you that we didn't have much between my husband and I. And then we were told that the cheapest place to get a transplant, or most reasonable place to get a transplant, would be India. And I remember meeting Indian doctors that had come in who had also taken a look at Natasha. And then when they saw her, they were like, you know what? If you don't do something, you're going to lose this child. And she has to get on a plane as soon as possible. And so we're told that we had to get the yellow fever vaccination, and that would take us 10 days. We would have to wait 10 days before we could travel. And so, in essence, we literally had 10 days to travel to India.
With no money.
With no money. And on the day that we actually met them, quite a funny story. My husband and I met them at a Meikles hotel. And before we walked into Meikles, we had $10 between us and poverty. And we're like, you know what? When we go in there, we shouldn't order anything. We should just ask for water. And if they order a cappuccino, maybe at that point it was about $3 for a cappuccino. We're like, I'm sure we'll be able to pay for them. And so we just had $10. And then the doctors were like, so you really have to go to India. And we asked them whether it was okay for her to get treatment while we try and raise money, and they're like, no, we're sorry, it's impossible. And so we then discovered we had to raise $100,000 in 10 days.
Someone is asking, where were you?
Pardon?
Someone is asking, where were you? She lives in Zimbabwe right now. She lives in Zimbabwe.
Oh yes, in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe. So we had 10 days to raise $100,000, and on the other hand, a dying child. And so we said to them, you know what? Go prepare for her. We're coming.
Mhm.
And up to now, Samuel, I don't understand where that faith came from.
Mm.
But my husband and I both agreed that we were going to do everything within our power to
Yes.
ensure that our child got her treatment.
Mhm.
And so, coming from that meeting in the morning, we've got an events business, and I had done Oliver Mtukudzi's 60th birthday party,
Okay. Mhm.
and I'd done deco for him. And so I met with then his manager, Sam Matauri. Shame, may his soul rest in peace. I met with Sam Matauri in the afternoon, and he's like, "How's Natasha doing?" Because they knew she wasn't well, and I'm like, "Things are really dire." So he then said, "Tuku is playing tonight,
Mhm.
um, at an event.
Mhm.
It was the launch of a bank.
Mhm.
So come through and see him." And so I went through and I saw him. He's like, how are you, my child? Happy to see me. Sam says, Baba muluto daro.
Mhm.
So I then told him, he then told him what was going on.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
remember just crying then. And he says, you know what, when I go in, I'm going to tell people that you need to raise this money. And at that point, we had CEOs,
Wow.
captains of industry in that room.
Wow.
And I'm just like,
Wow.
oh my goodness, Lord,
God.
your ways are not our thoughts.
True.
Our thoughts are not your
Amazing
thoughts,
God.
and our
Amazing
ways, your
God.
ways. But we're
Mm.
getting our 100,000 today. So I go in there,
Mhm.
and Tuku says, "This is my child, and so because it's her daughter, my grandchild needs this amount of money."
Wow.
And at that point, he played Seiko,
Oh my God.
and
That's making me emotional now.
then the new thing, Seiko. I was just like, I can't do this. He was beside me. I was standing by the stage. Everybody was staring at me. I couldn't take it. So I just excused myself. And I remember I went into the washroom and I just cried. I cried so much. And when I felt better,
Mhm.
because I hadn't cried,
Oh yeah.
um,
You
I'd
hadn't
only
experienced that.
cried
Yeah.
once when I
Mhm.
was told she wasn't well.
Yeah.
And then I just had this strength. My husband and I were there for each other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we weren't crying, but I remember for the second time I cried then. And then when I felt better,
Mhm.
I went back into the room and he then played his set. I went back into the room that they had kept for him to as a guest room.
Yeah.
And when he came back, he came back with a note from somebody that had pledged $5,000. But
Wow.
I'll tell you what,
Mm.
they had pledged, but we didn't get it that night.
Mm.
And later we would have to go back and forth to the
Yeah.
office in
Yeah.
that week to try and get it.
Yeah.
Eventually we did. But the irony of it is, even after having all those people in there, we didn't get any single cent from them. Not
No.
even not even a dollar, not even $20. We didn't get anything except for that pledge.
Oh my goodness.
And then Tuku said there was a guy called Nick Semura who had traveled from the US, random, wanted to see Tuku because they were good friends, right?
Mm.
And he says, Mdara, I've got a camera in my car. What if we take a short video and post it around on social media?
Mm.
And so Tuku was like, I'm happy to do that. And that video is still there on YouTube. And so Nick then went downstairs
Mm.
and Tuku made an appeal on my behalf.
Mhm.
2 days later, we circulated it, and people didn't even know I was going through all of
Mm.
this. They
Mm.
didn't know Eddie and I
Mm.
were going through this.
Mm.
I was still going to work every day. So even people at work are like, how is it that you were smiling and you were happy and
Mm.
carrying on,
Wow.
but you were going through this?
Mm.
And I think it comes with the peace that surpasses understanding, you're the one that they talk about in the
Right.
Bible.
Right.
I,
Wow.
I can say that we've lived it.
Mm.
And so that went around this. So we were supposed to travel in 10 days, right? And we went through that entire week. Nothing had happened. On the Monday, we had about 600 and something dollars. That's all that had been donated.
My God.
And we were supposed to leave the Saturday. And so my husband and I had a conversation, and we're like, you know what? The only thing that we know to do are events. What if we have a fundraising dinner? He says,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what? I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And because when you go back to the Bible, even in terms of Moses, when they're going through difficult times,
Mm.
God asked and said, what is in your hands?
Right. Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
what we had in our hands, what we knew best
Mm-hmm.
was events. And
Mm.
so again, I called Tuku and asked if he could play, and he said he could. I knew a lot of people, a lot of musicians. Yoselma Mtukudzis, I was very close to, and still am very close to Tarine Gitare, Prayer Soul, a couple of other people. And Tari then helped, we came
Mm.
we got a team together.
Mhm.
A friend of mine, Prelin, and her lovely husband, Keith Peterson from Bliss Gardens, then
Mm.
said, we'll offer the venue for free, tables, chairs, and everything. Tuku
Mm.
said he'd play for free. All the other musicians said they'd play
Wow.
for free.
Yeah, God.
And a guy called Virimai Gariro, a good friend of mine, again said, look, I'll do the tickets.
Wow.
So in a few hours, we'd planned an entire dinner.
Wow.
And on Tuesday, the tickets were done. Wednesday, we sold tickets at $50 per person, 50 US
Mm.
dollars per person.
Mm.
And on Thursday, we walked into Bliss Gardens and into a room with more than 250 people.
Dear God. Wow.
People that we didn't know,
Wow.
friends, family, people who just heard about the story and
Mm-mm.
wanted to be part of it. And earlier on in the week, I'd got a call from Tino Katande, Tino Pona Katande, and she'd said,
Oh,
look,
okay. You know Tino. I know her.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, I'm following your story. Can I put together with Makosi Masambasi, Makosi, can I put together a walk, a celebrities walk?
Wow.
Um, and they did that on the Thursday of the dinner in the morning. Went there and they had got Zimpraise to come,
Wow.
Kelos, Barry Manandi, people that were acting in Studio 263, just a
Wow.
lot of celebrities
Wow.
met in the
God.
morning. Someone had printed T-shirts with Natasha's face on it. We didn't
Wow.
even know how it had been done or who
God.
had funded for it. And I remember just seeing lots of people from Zimpraise, and they started from 4th Street, and we started walking along Jason Moyo, and they were singing Sungano,
Oh, God.
and it was just electric. So because they were singing and there were all these celebrities that were coming together, people would stop and ask what was happening, and
Mm.
they would put in just $1, just
Mm.
coins
Wow.
or a $10 note, and it was everybody.
Wow.
No race, color, creed, or social
Oh,
status.
God.
And then in the evening, the
Mm.
team that had done the walk also brought in their donations. They raised over $1,000.
Wow.
And so in the evening, Pastor Ivan Mawarire was our MC.
Mm.
The event is going well. We trying to do auctions. At 9 p.m., we had raised about 23,000.
Okay.
And remember, this was Thursday, and
Yeah.
we were supposed to
On Saturday.
leave on Saturday.
Yeah.
And we had raised 23,000. Then we were told that on the Monday, where I had cried and even put out a post on Facebook that the situation was dire. On that particular Monday, someone had gone and paid for the transplant, and they were waiting for confirmation from India. So
You know what it was?
45,000 was for the transplant,
Oh my God. Oh my
35,000 was
God.
for the donor, and 20,000 was for living expenses, airfares, and everything. And they had paid the entire 45,000 and wanted
Wow.
to.
Wow. Wow. God. Amazing God.
And so they said, if any of you are not a match, we will pay the 35,000 the next day.
Oh my God.
And so not only had we raised enough,
Mm-hmm.
in that room we had exceeded the 20 that we needed.
Dear God. Wow.
And my sister's boss stood up and said she had 4 air tickets to give us for myself,
Mm-hmm.
Raymond, Natasha, and the dad. And so now we had air tickets. And 2 friends of mine, Zinube and Cynthia Chizwina, then said, look, we had also looked for tickets. So they now had 2 extra tickets and we had 6 tickets. And so they're like, oh, the Gogos should go. And
Wow.
it was God making, because even when it got really tough in India, had both our moms not come through, it would have been very difficult for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we traveled to India, got there. Natasha went through chemo to kill all the cells in her body, while her little brother, Natasha was 5, and her little brother Raymond, who was 3 years old, was the match, a
Wow.
full match. So he went through injections to prepare for the transplant. So he was getting injections to increase his cells, so that he would be able to have enough to donate to his sister. And she went through chemo to kill all the cells in her body. And when when they finished the process, they then did the transplant. The irony of it, though, is, um, you know, they actually time everything. They have a whole regiment of how to do it.
Okay.
And I'll tell you that the doctors, without knowing anything, then said to us, Natasha's transplant is going to be on the 26th of November.
Okay.
And we're like, what? And they're like, yes, it's going to be on the 26th of November. And the irony of it is, on the 26th of November is actually Natasha's birthday.
Wow. Good.
So
Mm.
what are the odds that she gets a new lease of life
Wow.
on
A
actual
birthday.
birthday?
Amazing. Amazing.
And so, I mean, for us, we're like, if
God.
there's any show of God's presence,
Yes. Right.
it's
Right.
in that. It's
Right.
in little details like that.
Mm.
And they said, oh no, but since it's her birthday, we won't have it on the 26th. We'll let her celebrate it, and then we'll have it on the 27th. So
Okay.
then she then had her transplant on the 27th. So the 26th was a closed chapter, and then on the 27th she had, her transplant.
Yeah.
And it went very well. We had issues because of chemo after effects, but it wasn't bad. And we spent 5 months in India and then came back.
Wow.
But the irony of it is, while we were there, I had series of a series of surgeries. I'd had 2 surgeries before because I was having trouble with cysts. And while I was there, I then discovered, and I know a lot of people don't know this, but I discovered that I had fallen pregnant.
Mm.
And so at that point, Eddie had traveled back quickly because they wanted him back at work. And then I discovered this, and it was a very difficult time for me. And then later, I think when it was about 3 weeks, went for a scan, and the gyna said, "Look, I can't see the child. I can't see the baby." And so did another scan a week later, and they're like, "You know what? You have what is called a blighted ovum. So the child is not in the womb, so we have to terminate it." And then he said, and then she said, "Do you have anybody who's here?" And I was like, "No." At that point, I only had Wendy, who was our house help then. The gogos had gone back to Zimbabwe. And I'm like, I have nobody. I remember it was a Friday and they said they wanted to do the surgery on Monday
While you were in India.
while I was in India. And I said to them, they're like, "But if you have it, not the surgery, but the procedure." And they're like, "You'll lose a lot of blood. So you cannot be alone after the procedure." And I said, "Okay, I'll go and look for somebody." And there's a family that had gotten close to the Sudarsans. And I went to ask if it was okay for her to be with me because I had nobody, but I was going through so much pain and emotionally,
I know. I know.
and because we had always wanted a third child. And she said she was happy to come. And I told Eddie about it, and he said, "Okay." Um,
But I'm just curious, what questions went through your head? I mean, I know, just speak to us about that part. What went through your head in terms of like questions? Because a lot of times when we are faced with a moment like this, I mean, you've got this issue going on, and then all of a sudden this comes up. It's
yeah,
like a problem over another problem. What
yeah,
thoughts went through your head? And I just want to thank everybody who's joining. Tokozani is saying sometimes the Lord allows us to go through these trials to build our character for His kingdom
mm,
and to
mm,
testify of His mighty power.
yeah,
It's so true. And truly, this is beyond beyond human expectation. I
yeah.
mean, what you were going through. But how did you cope? And Pastor T, I saw you. Thank you for joining. And Rachel, I saw you. Thank you, everybody who's joining. Eunice, I'm seeing you guys. And Angie, Angela, Mtinza, thank you for joining. Yes, you can
So,
maybe
so
respond to that. And
yeah,
maybe, and maybe also in that vein, I would also want you to probably kind of speed up because we also want to hear the other boy's story
right.
within this time frame. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it was very, very difficult. It was very painful because at that point Natasha's transplant had been successful. So you then want to think, "Oh my goodness, we're going towards the trajectory is going upwards. Like we're going through good stuff and good news."
Yes.
And
Yes.
then again you get the setback and you're like, "But Lord, why?" And again, you don't have answers for it. I mean, in my life, I know I've asked a couple of whys where you don't even have answers.
Yeah. True.
But it goes back to, again, exactly what I said, that his thoughts are not our thoughts, neither his ways are ways. You then suddenly get your aha moment, days, weeks, years later. And for me, this is it.
Yeah.
And so quickly then Eddie decided on that weekend, Sunday, I get a call. No, no, on the Saturday in the evening, I get a call from Eddie. And he says, "Guess what?" And yeah. I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he says, "I'm coming. I'm arriving tomorrow. Can you pick me
Wow.
up?"
Thank you, Lord.
And I'm just like, "Oh my goodness."
Thank you,
And
Lord.
before I carry on with my story, one of the things that I wanted to do is pay tribute and celebrate my husband. Um,
Wow.
at any point, I never went for a doctor's visit without my child, for our children, for Natasha or Nathan without him. Personally, when I went through what I went through, and even today, as I still go through in and out of hospital, with the many surgeries that I've had, he's always been by my side, always. And
Power
a lot
cup.
of people have said, "You know what? When you go through things, the sort of things that you've gone through,
Yeah.
men disappear."
Yeah.
But I must say I have been truly blessed to have such an amazing man. Solid support, amazing love for his children. So
Wow.
quickly, he came, and a few days later, I went through the procedure. A few days later, where the doctor then actually said you could go home. And we came home 2014. Life was seemingly getting back to normal. And like I said, we tried again for another child. And while Natasha was going through what she was going through, we assumed that we would get sorry, while Natasha was going through that, she had about 6 doctors that were seeing her. But at no point did any doctor tell us that if we tried for another child, we might have issues. And so we didn't know. And we did. And so when I gave birth to Nathan, the doctor, who I'm very, very close to, my gynecologist, then gave me, Nathan. But he was so worried, and he said to me, congratulations, Sylvia, you've got a baby boy. But fortunately, he's got club hands. So I looked at this little boy. He's got club hands and he doesn't have thumbs.
My God.
And I didn't cry. I just looked at him, fell in love with him at that point.
Thank you, Lord.
And Eddie was right there with him. So we just looked at each other, and we didn't have words to say to each other. But yeah, we then decided to call him Nathan, which means God's gift.
Amen.
And the next day, I remember that was the first time that I cried. And I know you asked me before. It was one of those moments where you're like, but Lord, why?
Yes.
And it wasn't, why have you given me a child that looks like this? But my why wasn't, you've given me a child with club hands, without thumbs. How is he going to cope?
Okay.
Um,
Okay, that was your side.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was my why. Not that I had issues with how he looked, but already as a parent, my first
Thinking of him.
was how would he cope? And later on, we then discovered that he had Fanconi's anemia too. And so already we're like, so maybe between the age of 5 and 7, as the doctors say, or he may need a bone marrow transplant.
Yeah.
And 3 weeks later, actually 6 weeks later, when he went for his for the 6-week visit, and just tests, we then also discovered he doesn't have a right kidney.
Oh my goodness.
And then when he was about 2 months old, we then discovered that each time the kids, Natasha and Raymond, would run around the house, he wouldn't, if he was sleeping, he wouldn't flinch. It was like there was nothing. So I said to Eddie, have you noticed that Nathan doesn't, even if the kids are screaming, he doesn't wake up? And so we decided to take him to a local place where they did testing, and they actually told us that he had severe hearing loss. He couldn't hear.
Over and above the other.
Over and above. And so what was happening was, you wake up and you're told your child, you give birth and you're told your child doesn't have thumbs and he doesn't have a right kidney. And then you think that's enough. And then you're also told he won't be able to hear. And at that point, his hands were like this.
Yeah. I think I'll post a picture later. I'll post a picture.
And so you're like, but again, Lord. And so we then went to South Africa, and just to get a second opinion, and they did confirm that he didn't have the right kidney, and again, yes, that he had severe hearing loss. And when we traveled to South Africa, it was again one of those,
Mhm.
we're going to faith it. We don't have money, but we're going to faith it. And the irony of it is, when we then went,
Mhm.
um, each time we went, the doctors would, the doctors would, the doctors would say, you know what, don't pay. And these are
Wow.
specialist doctors that didn't know us,
That's God.
and
That's
they would say, don't pay.
wow.
And yeah, fast forward 5 months later, we had gone again for a second test in South Africa, and we're gonna again in South Africa to South Africa, sorry. And while we were there, they confirmed again that, you know what, yes, indeed, his hearing is severe, but they had said they would get him what they call a bone anchored hearing aid. So we got the bone anchored hearing aid. We're with it. We're at my sister-in-law's place where we were staying in Pretoria, and Eddie had Nathan on his lap. He's playing with him. Then he clicked his right hand. I mean, he clicked on the right, and Nathan looked. And then
Wow.
he clicked on the left, and Nathan looked to the left where the sound was coming from. Clicked again, and from that day, without surgery, without
Oh,
the bone
miracle.
anchored
God.
hearing aid, Nathan began to hear.
Oh, wow. Glory to God.
And I'll tell you, he hears and he speaks. But
Mm.
earlier on, as we were traveling
Okay, I
back,
love what Titi's saying. She just said, I call it a special grace for special families. Indeed,
yeah,
you have a special grace. Yeah,
yeah,
it does take faith, like what Tukozan is saying. Yeah.
yeah. And earlier on, I had had a conversation with God. And I'll tell you, throughout our journey, there are times when I can't pray. But when I can't pray, I have what I call conversations with God.
I love that. I
And
love
one of the conversations that I had with God was, Lord, you've given us Nathan.
that.
Um, he doesn't have a right kidney. I can't change that. He's
Mhm,
got club heads. That's very structural.
mhm,
We can have a surgery, but I doubt that his thumbs will ever grow. But the
mhm.
one thing that you can change is him being able to hear. I
Okay.
don't want to learn sign language.
Okay.
After everything that I've gone through, I
Yeah.
do not want to learn sign language. So when this happened, it
Uh,
was an answered prayer.
our conversation with God, real
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and I remember I also had a conversation with God when Natasha was going through chemo and the symptoms. She had had a bout of diarrhea for 16 times in
Mm.
that day, and my back was aching because I'd had to carry her back and forth from a hospital bed to the bathroom. And it was really painful. I remember looking in the mirror, just facing myself, and I had another conversation with God, and I said, look, you allowed for this to happen, but the least that you can do for us, Lord, is to ensure that Natasha doesn't go through pain. And she didn't. The next day, she went 5 times, and each time she would miss herself. And I'm like, what's going on, my darling? Are you not able to say that you want to go to the bathroom? And she says, Mom, I don't even feel it coming. So again, those were conversations with God. And thereafter, um, fast forward to 2018, Nathan's bone marrow failed. And when Nathan's bone marrow failed, he was only 2.5 years old. And we were not expecting it. But yeah, it happened. And we went through the whole process of trying to raise money again. We held another fundraising dinner. Tuku came, but still we were not able to raise money. And for 5 months, we tried everything that we could. And then eventually, a friend of mine said, look, go to the Ministry of Health and see one remarkable lady. She says you should come. They would like to help you. And so we did go to the Ministry of Health, and we had raised about $25,000 then, and we needed the $100,000 to go back to India with Nathan. And they said they'd pay the 75,000. And when it was paid, we traveled to India. And Nathan's journey was so difficult because he was a half match. Raymond again donated his bone marrow. He was a half match, and it was so difficult because after his chemo and the transplant, he used to bleed 20 times a day. It was like a diarrhea, but instead of your normal diarrhea, what would come out was just blood. And at one point, they said to us, you know what? You are losing your child. And when they said this, he had actually gone cold. He was in ICU. And I remember singing Janet Manyowa's song, Sadzisa. And I said to the Lord, you know, you said in your word, you came to give us life and to give us life in abundance. Show yourself strong in Nathan's life. And he did. And Nathan came out of it. But the irony of it is on the day that I was in ICU, one of the nurses then came back to us and said, you know what, ICU is super expensive. So you have to go and check your bill. And so I did. And when I went there, I was told that we were in arrears of 1,500 US dollars. The deposit of 100, well, the deposit that we'd made for Nathan's transplant had been depleted. So now you've got a child in ICU who's possibly dying, and money's finished. And so I made an appeal on Facebook, and in 3 days, we're able to raise $15,000 from a dollar campaign. And not only that, the Ministry of Health came through again, and we're able to raise 30,000. The irony of it, though, is they're able to give us 30,000. The irony of it is, after his treatment, we're able to pay the bills. And just like in Natasha's event, what we got was enough and sufficient until we left. Beyond that, we didn't have any cent left over for us to come and start life. So each time we came back, life would be really difficult. And yeah, God would be with us still. And so, yeah, that's pretty much our story. And interesting enough,
I'm back.
despite going through everything that we've gone through, I've had my issues with health as well. I've had 8 surgeries to date, and about 3 weeks ago, the doctors told me that I had a collapsed lung. I was in hospital for about a week, and I am still recovering. But what I've come to know of the Lord is that His grace is sufficient. And His word rings true when He says, I know the plans that I have for you. In Jeremiah 29, verse 11. And that's what we've pretty much lived to date.
Wow. Wow, amazing. I had my own technical glitch today. Thanks for holding it up. I thought you were also gone. I think my internet just went down totally. I don't even know what happened. That never happened. I know the devil was fighting our broadcast for a long time, but I'm glad it went through. I probably missed a bit, but probably maybe just, I don't know if you did talk about the lessons that you learned throughout your process. Some of the big lessons that you learned. I mean, you have had issues with the kids, health issues with the kids, issues with yourself. And then also, how did you end up also finding purpose through those experiences and the pain that you went through?
Okay. So, after having gone through whatever Natasha and Nathan went through, and my personal health issues as well, Eddie and I decided to start the Nate Foundation.
Mhm,
Um, I'll tell you a bit about Nathan's experience. When he was 6 months old,
mhm,
there were plastic surgeons. We needed 40,000 to get his hands sorted, and there were plastic surgeons that came in from the US,
mhm.
and they performed the surgery for free. And
God.
then came back a year later, and they said, you know what? Because there'll be like 60 people that need
Mm,
close to 60 children that need hand surgeries, but they'll only or they'll only take in 8 for that week. And
mhm,
Nathan was fortunate enough
mhm,
to get that hand surgery, but it was done at Pari. And while I was there, I would sleep on the floor
mhm,
because there are no benches or whatever.
mhm,
And I'd see all these mothers that were sleeping on the floor as well.
mhm.
And I remember at that point, I later got a side ward. And from morning till evening, I would have people with different issues coming. I remember we were all buying yogurt for a little boy who was placed on a liquid diet, and the mom didn't have anything. And they had opened him up from here going downwards.
Oh my goodness.
And she didn't have anything, so she had been giving this child water. And so Eddie and I started buying um, yogurt. And
Mhm,
then there was another child who had burns, and she needed money for some treatment, and it cost $50 US, but the mom didn't have. So we started paying for them. And in that time that we were there, we were providing water or one thing or the other.
mhm.
And because of that, I then discovered that there were so many parents that were going through difficult health
Yeah,
issues
right.
with their children,
Mm, mm,
needed some sort of support. And
mm,
so we started the NAME Foundation,
mm.
which is an organization to help children with aplastic anemia and cancer.
Okay.
And it is there on Facebook.
Mhm.
And people that were following our story started calling us with their issues. And to date,
Mm.
we've helped so many families
Wow.
with children with aplastic anemia. Some of them have gone to India,
Mhm,
quite sadly, and it breaks my heart. We've also tried to help others
mhm,
whose children didn't make it.
mhm,
And they did go for the transplant. The children didn't make it. And it's God's doing, very
mhm.
painful, but we've walked the journey with them. And
Wow.
sometimes, and we've just opened our house to these
Mm,
families. So they'll
wow.
come in for counseling sessions. We've got toys and books that
Mhm,
have been donated to the foundation while their children play with toys and books.
mhm,
Um, Titi Mtendi gave me beautiful dolls
mm,
that I give to the kids, just to these brave kids that are
mhm.
fighting this.
Wow.
And when I talk to these parents, they're like, for the first time, we've spoken to someone that totally gets it because we've gone through it.
Yeah.
Um, and so we're running this foundation. And we also then started, we also opened a creche, a preschool
Wow.
for normal kids. But Nathan then attended this preschool because remember, he didn't have thumbs.
Mm,
And we needed somewhere where um, he would have teachers that are patient with them so
yeah.
that he would thrive and be able to go into a normal school.
Mm,
And that nursery school did it for us. Now he goes to one of the really, really good schools in Harare, and
wow.
he went in there on merit, not
Wow.
because
Wow.
he's got special needs, but on
I've
merit.
seen videos of him actually running athletics and all of that.
Yes, yes. So um, he's able to color. He's found a way of doing whatever he needs to do.
Mm,
So this nursery school again is open to just, kids, just any child, and
mm,
more importantly, to children with special needs. And
wow.
again, it was birthed on the premise that our children, rather our child, yes, needed that sort of support. And looking around, we couldn't find anywhere else. I
Mhm,
know there's Jerry and there's Daniko, but we also needed a little place where, they didn't feel left out.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah, even the teacher to child ratio was really good.
Mm,
And so this little places in Roa,
mm,
absolutely love it to bits.
mm.
Um, to us in it, it's our labor of love.
Wow.
Um, and so we've mirrored our businesses around
This,
supporting the
yeah,
work that we do.
love it.
The events company Kutenda has events that we put together, and we try and raise awareness of the Nate Foundation,
Mm,
of Caterpillar
mm.
Clubhouse, a plastic anemia and cancer.
Wow. I love it.
In terms of lessons learned, lessons learned, the biggest take for me is to never give up.
Love it.
So what I've learned somewhere is that we all go through things.
Yeah.
We all have a thorn in our flesh.
Right.
Uh, the thorn in my flesh is the health of my children. And I say it is still there
Mm,
because with Fanconi's anemia, they say the life expectancy
mm,
is 18 years.
mm,
Um,
mm,
so I've got two
mm,
children with Fanconi's anemia, and I
mm,
live with, and I don't want to call it a fact because I know who my God is. I
yeah.
live with what medical science and reports say um, is a short life expectancy because in their teenage years,
Mhm.
they children with Fanconi's anemia get what they call acute myeloid leukemia, which is a blood cancer. And so because of that, I've said to myself, I don't know how long I have my children for,
Yeah.
but I'm going to do everything in
Wow.
my power to ensure
Wow.
that I give them the
Wow.
best life
Mm,
they could ever have. And I don't know how long it is for, but
mm.
I stand in believing in a God who again said in his word, I came to give you life and life in abundance. So that's what I speak over my children all the time.
Hallelujah.
Um, but that being said, this is where I would like to challenge somebody. I
Mhm.
live with that every single day. And
Right.
I've got a choice
Mhm.
to wake up and be scared, to
Sad,
give up,
crying. Mhm.
to throw a pity party,
Exactly.
or to say, you know what, Lord, I know who you are.
Amen.
I know what you can do for me. I've
Amen.
seen what you've already done.
Yes.
I am believing in you doing far greater
Mm.
than you've already done.
Wow.
And so I've seen it with each day, whether
Wow.
my child has a cough or whether we genuinely have to go to the ER, not just for him, but for myself.
Mm.
Um, and we still come out with life and life in
Amen.
abundance.
Hallelujah.
And we did that even as we were told we had having $10 in our pocket,
Mm.
and we were told we needed 100,000. We
Mm.
got up and did something.
Mm.
So we all have a thorn in our flesh.
Right.
It could be sickness. It could be a marriage that's not going so great.
Exactly.
It could be a child that's giving you problems like
Mm.
behavioral problems.
Mm.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
Um, what I know is God speaks of a sufficient grace,
Hallelujah.
especially during these times, this COVID period. You
Mhm.
know, the fact that you don't even have a
Mm.
job or you can't put food on your table.
Mm.
Today, I want to talk of sufficient grace
Right.
and just believing in the Lord.
Right.
There's a difference between knowing God
Mhm.
and believing in Him.
Right. Mhm.
I chose to believe Him and
Right.
trust Him
Right.
completely. And when
Right.
I speak of this trust, it's a
Mm.
trust that I feel from deep
Mhm.
down in my belly. When
Mm.
someone says, this is what you're going through, and
Mhm.
this is what the reports say, and they say, you've got a collapsed lung, and things are not looking good, and
Mhm.
you're there. I mean, I was in HDU 3 weeks ago, and
Mhm.
I still believe. that God is going to come through for me.
And what
Um,
me is during that time you were still doing things for people with COVID. In your times of helplessness, I remember
yeah,
seeing a video. You were actually ministering to somebody. And a lot
yeah,
of times we feel so helpless that we think we have nothing to give. But
yeah,
I mean, I just love the strength that you have, that even in the times when you are going through tough times, it does not necessarily mean that you have nothing to give.
yeah.
And for me, that's an amazing lesson that I learned from you, that, a lot of times we sit back and we say, what can I do? I'm helpless. I am the victim.
Mm.
I am the one who needs help. I am the one who needs visits. And you forget about everybody else. And yet God can actually make you to become an avenue of God's blessing to somebody during that time.
Yeah, I like that you say that, because what you have to remember is when you're doing God's business,
Mm.
He takes care of your business.
True. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah, when you're doing God's business, He takes
mm,
care of your business.
mm,
So, um, yes, even during the time that, yes, I was in hospital, I still had a team that was going to Caledonia, and we were disinfecting people's houses, providing water to a community that
mm,
didn't have water. And do you know what? Pastor Rumbi, someone who's very, very close to me, who I'd worked with in Caledonia,
mm,
then said to me, when the bowser for water came in Caledonia, people were singing praises and singing to the Lord. And think about it, Samu. If I'm in hospital and you've got people in Caledonia singing praises
mm.
because of something that I've done,
Wow.
do you think God
Amazing.
will just sit and wait and be like, no, I'm
Mm,
not going to do something or bring you out of this?
mm.
No.
That's
Yeah.
true. I
So
love
I
that.
just want to encourage somebody
Mm,
that, even as you're going through whatever you're going through,
mm.
trust in the Lord
Right.
and start doing God's business.
Mhm.
Um, and you'll be shocked how he begins to minister to you. I've seen it in my life. I've seen
Right.
it do it. I've
Mm,
seen him do it.
mm.
And yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. This is incredible. I'm really inspired. I'm really inspired. People are just amazed at the story. Tanaka is just saying, "Oh wow, I love this." Angie's saying, "You're amazing." TC is saying, "Preach," and she's a lovely lady. I'm sure her situation also resonates with what you went through. So I know she's really being blessed here. And then Kokozani is just saying those kids will leave and serve God, who does not do his job halfway. So that's a
Yeah.
prophecy right there. He said he
Amen.
came to set the captives free. And when the Son of Man says what? That you are free indeed. So thanks for that. We believe it, that God is going to do it. And I mean, I just love your faith, and Bombi is like saying, like Sarah, you judge him faithful. I'm being challenged. I'm being challenged about this. It's God that's doing this, giving rivers of living waters. All these wonderful words. No pity party. The grace of God is sufficient. And I think so many of us are learning. Bombi is actually laughing out aloud and says, we're able to stand steadfast in His grace, and I really love that. And I'm so inspired by his story. A lot of times, I think what one big take that I have from you is that we all have a thorn in the flesh. Sometimes we all think we have it rough more than any other person, but when we listen to hear your story, I cannot even begin. I cannot even begin, when I just think of my challenges. But here you are, strong. Here you are, you keep going. Here you are, inspiring us today and ministering hope to our lives. Here you are in hospital, giving hope to someone, causing someone to smile even in the time of your pain. That's a
Mm.
powerful takeaway there is for me. A lot of times we are so stuck on our pain and we forget that we still have something to give. And I love what you said, that when you take care of God's business, He will take care of your business. And just seeing God coming through for you. I don't know if I missed the part where you talked about, I saw the part where Nathan started walking, which was so miraculous, you
Yeah.
know I mean, just living a life of seeing God's miraculous works every day. And I'm just thinking
Mm.
these challenges, they help you see the hand of God in ways you can never imagine. And, this is such an inspirational story. And I'm trusting somebody has been blessed out there because I have been thoroughly encouraged by your story. And,
Thank you.
yeah, I really thank God for you. And probably I want you to say the last words to our guests. Maybe you might have left off one or two things that you really wish you could say to someone out there. I know someone is watching and they're sitting in their place and they're probably just wondering how they're going to move the next step. You are there with $10. You didn't know what's going to happen. And God just came through. Just speak your last words to just encourage somebody as we close up.
All right. I just want to say, keep hope and faith alive.
Yeah.
That is my mantra.
Mm-hmm.
Keep hope and faith alive. And what
Mm-hmm.
is faith? Um, it's the assurance of
Mm-hmm.
things hoped for.
Right.
And I love the word assurance because you are so you believe completely
Yes.
that it's going to happen.
Right.
And so I live a life of faith. I'll share a quick testimony. Um, One of our children needed work, schoolwork. I know there's virtual learning, and with COVID and everything, our finances were not looking good, and so again, instead of worrying and fretting and throwing a
Mm-hmm.
pity party, I knelt before the Lord and I said, Lord, um, you are, the supplier of our needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so got up. The school had said people were not going to get any work.
Mm-hmm.
The children are not going to get any access to work if we hadn't paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew our finances would be coming at some point, but we didn't have them then. But I didn't want him to miss school. And so I got up and I went to the head and I said, look, and again, I say, whatever you're going through, whenever you're going through something, speak your truth.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked at the number of people that would be
True.
able to help you. So I went to the head and spoke my truth and said, look, this is our situation, but I would really love our child to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, you know what? We know who you are. And just integrity as well.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, go and get your child's schoolwork. And I
Wow.
remember calling my sister as I was going to the car with his work in my hands, no fees paid.
Wow.
And I just said to her, the Lord has done it again.
Love that.
But what I'd like you to learn, or what I'd like you to take away from this is, I got up
Mm-hmm. Right.
and believed.
Yeah.
I took the first step to
Yes, yes,
show
yes.
the Lord that I had absolute trust in Him.
Mm-hmm.
Had I not gone to the school, I
Mm-hmm.
would have not exercised my faith that the Lord was going to do it for me.
Right.
But because I had taken that step, the
Mm-hmm.
Lord had to follow through. So
Right.
sometimes we don't get what we want
Because it.
because we haven't exercised
Mm.
the faith.
Right.
If we had not told the doctors, even in having $10 in our pocket,
Mm-hmm.
that they could go to India and we were going to come,
Mm-hmm.
probably would not have received the 100,000.
True. Right.
But we had shown the Lord that we had complete trust in Him.
Hallelujah.
So, when you don't have food on the table, boil the water and see
I
if the
love that.
miracle will not come through. And
Amen.
don't try. I think sometimes we don't get because we want to prescribe how God will bless us.
Right. Right. Right.
So don't cry because money is not coming in through your business. Just boil the water and
Yeah.
a note will come through the door.
Right. I love
I
that.
have experienced it. I know this.
Mm-hmm.
So in conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
keep hope and faith alive.
Mm.
Trust in God, lean not on your understanding,
Right.
and He will help you. He will come through for you.
Love
I've
it.
seen it in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many miracles to show,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope you will be able, just like me, to continue praising him and speaking of his goodness
Mm-hmm.
as you walk through hope and faith and an amazing life.
I love that. I wish I could just hug you, honestly. I'm giving
Break
you
my
a
heart.
hug. Thank you so much. Thank you so, so much. This has been so, I don't know, it's been awesome for me. Just hearing your story through and through. There are parts I really didn't know. And just the reality of day to day living your life. It's not easy, but you're amazing. And I really thank God for your strength and that I just learned so much to rely on you from your testimony that, where we end, that's where God begins with us. So you're an amazing woman. And I want to tell you guys, this lady gives. She gives. Well, I know Pastor Rumi, she always tells me if you go to a house, you will not leave the house empty handed. She's like that. And in spite of all that she goes through, she keeps on the hope. She keeps giving. She keeps loving the Lord. And I know there are also other issues, probably stigma and things like that. But I mean, you make having your son look so cool, you
Oh
know?
no, he's amazing.
A lot of people, would feel sorry for you, but I mean, the way you treat your son, you make it look so cool, man. Like you guys don't have a kid like this, you're missing out. And
Yeah,
I really
yeah,
want to
yeah.
appreciate you for the love that you give those kids, and they keep it up. They'll treasure
Thank
that in their hearts, and you're teaching someone out there to love their child. Some people may struggle to love kids like that, but you're actually teaching someone out there to love their kids irregardless, no matter what. And even if people would want to stigmatize, look, what's there to stigmatize about Nate? I mean,
It
he's,
was, it
he's
was,
a man.
yeah, for us,
Yeah.
when we got him,
Eh,
I remember Nathan, Natasha and Raymond were like, what's wrong with his hands? And I said to them, there's nothing absolutely wrong with his hands. God makes special kids sometimes, and he just happens to be lucky to be one of the special ones.
wow.
And so from then it became our new normal. And we've never shown Nathan how to hold a pen or to eat on his own. We've just allowed him to be. And one of my friends said something very profound. He said, there's nothing wrong with Nathan's hands. What if we're the ones that have the hands that are wrong?
I know, right?
Yeah, like who set a
Yeah.
standard? So maybe we're the ones that don't have normal hands.
That, love that.
And so,
Mm,
because of that, he's thrived. He swims on his
wow.
own.
Wow.
He eats. He dresses on his own. It's
Okay.
our new normal, and he doesn't know that his hands are different.
Wow.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Wow. Okay, we're gonna have to call it a wrap. I can spend the whole day talking to you. I usually make this less than an hour, but I just really want
Oh
to.
my
I'm
gosh!
telling you the truth, but I really wanted to hear more and just the inspiration and the hope that you've been sharing with us. People, thank you so much who joined us. Those who are going to watch the replay, I mean, yeah, this is an awesome story. Please share with somebody. I know somebody out there has a situation they are facing in their life and they just need a story that will give hope to them. Look at this woman smiling with a special child. She makes him look so cool, and we love that. Thank you, Madeline. She's saying loving the encouragement. Oh, actually, Bombi says, I think part two is necessary. The word conclusion not even fitting here. I know, right? I think I'll have to bring her back because I think there are other bits, like especially on Nathan's life, that we might need to really talk about. So I think we'll organize that in the near future. And yeah, so this is it. Thanks, Tokozani. Thanks for sharing your story. And everybody who joined, I love you guys. Please, if you didn't watch it from the beginning, try to watch it from the beginning. There's a part where I did lose a bit of my network, but God is good. At least Sylvia continued to hold it up. yeah, the devil did try to fight our broadcast since Friday, but hey, we are more than conquerors, fighters all the time. So, you guys, this is Samu serving you all the way to wholeness, stories of hope from brokenness to wholeness. And we were having Sylvia Sanyanga, such an inspiration. I would love to hear you speaking all day, but we gotta call it this a wrap. Thank you guys for joining. Yeah, hope you guys have a blessed the rest of the day. Let it be blessed, and yeah, keep hope alive. That's the mantra. Love you, Sylvia. Thanks everybody for
Love
joining.
you
We're
too.
gonna end this. So yeah, thank you guys. Bye.